Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. Today is March 28th, 2026. Apostate congregation, it is such a beautiful day outside today that I thought we would take the congregation outside. So here we are, and what we are doing in this episode, this is episode number 8 in Solomon Southwick's book, A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry. And we are going to continue reading we're going to continue reading this book and comparing it to Mormonism, and how this book how the anti-Masonic movement is a warning against Mormonism, as we call it today, right? And my evidence of that is the anti-Masonic movement itself, right? The entire movement it's a warning against a religious institution that is called Freemasonry. It's a religious institution, right? They literally call it the Church of Masonry. So we are going to get into this. And so today we are on page 57. We're going to talk about the lambskin order because, as you know, Joseph Smith was in the lambskin order. Also, we are going to talk about the Blue Lodge, a little bit of federalism. Okay, and we'll just see how we go. But one thing that I want to recap is from the last episode. I want to recap. Okay, so on page, I believe it was page 50. Let's go back to page 50. Okay, so on our last episode, we were talking about George Washington, right? So the name of the last episode is George Washington, a Mormon or a Mason, right? And this is the reason why, is because on page 50 of Southwick's book, Solomon Southwick writes, where did I go with it? All right, here it says, for Washington, to the valor of the hero, the virtue of the patriot, and the wisdom of the sage added the faith and the grace of the Christian. Okay, now we're talking about Freemasonry, okay, in its conception in the 1820s. Remember, this book is published in 1827. Okay, so this is the conversation that's taking place in 1827. George Washington put the faith and grace in the religious institution called Freemasonry. Okay, so whether or not that's true or not, okay, because he goes on and he says, I boldly answer, no, he could not, he did not. And did Washington ever bend his mind upon Freemasonry? Okay, so that so regardless if that's true, okay, if that's true, that's really fucked up, because that means we're talking about Mormonism and Freemasonry. Do you understand? So that would mean George Washington put the faith and grace of the Christian into the theology of Mormonism. Now, let's dig deeper into that. There is a very old story in Mormonism about how George Washington saw the angel Moroni at the Battle of Valley Forge. And there's a very famous Mormon picture of George Washington kneeling with the big white horse, and, you know, he's all in his garb, you know. So my thought when I read that on the last episode, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Okay, so regardless of if it's true, it's a story that's in an 1827 book. And also, Mormonism has a similar story. George Washington saw the angel Moroni at the Valley Forge, right? So these kinds of coincidence, parallels, whatever you want to call it, is all throughout the anti-Masonic movement, the anti-Masonic literature. It's literally Mormonism. Okay. So I thought that was pretty profound, actually. When I read that, I was just like, get the fuck out of here. Is that I truly hope that's not true, because if that is true, that's that's pretty that's pretty profound, you know what I'm saying? All right, so let's continue now on page 57. So uh, I'm just going to start out at the top of the page. Okay, we were one sentence into the page where we left off, so I'll just start at the top of page 57 of Solomon Southwick's book, A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry, an address to the young men of the United States, 1827. This book is not religious. We are talking about the politics of how this institution got organized. Okay. So, for the motives which I have actuated, those who were the first to procure their charters and commence their operations as to the grand source of all the present state and the local charters or constitutions in this country, we find it to have been a grand convention for everything connected with the lambskin order. Okay, Joseph Smith was in the lambskin order, right? And Joseph Smith also was the lambskin maker. He made the aprons out of lambskin, for the lambskin order and out of lambskin. That's important because we're going to talk about this in an 1827 book. Why are we going to talk about this? Stay with me, congregation. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's a poll going on right now. How many of you have already liked and subscribed to the channel? Yes or no? At the end of the episode, we're going to read the poll and see how many of you like and subscribe. All right, let's keep going. With the lambskin order is necessarily grand, it's italicized, held at Hartford, it's Hartford, Connecticut, on the fourth Wednesday of January 1798, and composed of delegates from all the northern states, including New York. Now, remember earlier, we talked about how all of the delegates were Freemasons, and the system was rigged because they're all Freemasons, which are Mormons. Okay. It is indeed remarkable that Hartford should have been the seat of a Masonic as well as a Blue Light, okay, italicized, a Masonic as well as a Blue Light. They're two different organizations, okay? We today think them as one. Originally, they are two. It says it right here. Seat of a Masonic, italicized, comma, as well as a Blue Light, comma, conspiracy against the laws and liberties of this country. Okay, that is very, very important right there. What is Joseph Smith? He is a member of the Blue Light Lodge. Brigham Young, all of them, they're all members of the Blue Light Lodge. Okay, Hiram, they're all Blue Light Lodge members. Okay, so listen to that again. A grand connection for everything connected with the lambskin order, italicized, comma, is necessarily grand, italicized, held at Hartford on the fourth Wednesday of January 1798. Pay attention to these dates, congregation. And composed of delegates from all of the northern states, including New York. It is indeed remarkable that Hartford should have been the seat of a Masonic, italicized, comma, as well as a Blue Light, italicized, comma, conspiracy against the laws and liberties of this country. That right there is what we are talking about. Okay? That is my entire point right there. These are two entities, right? They start out as one. They're Masonic in nature. The Blue Lodge and the Masonic Lodge, right? Okay. Conspiracy against the laws and liberties of this country, 1827. And it is to be hoped that a people so respectable, virtuous, and enterprising may yet take measures to wipe off forever the odium of having given birth to two such monsters in the moral world as modern Masonry and blue light federalism. Blue light federalism, okay? That's important because remember the schism. What is Joseph Smith? Is he nobody knows if he's a Democrat or a Republican. Which way should they go, right? It says right here, a blue light federalism. He was a Federalist. Joseph Smith, if you believe in that, he was a Federalist, which that in all itself has significance, right? But be this as it may, if we examine for a moment the cause which has produced the multiplication of lodges till we meet with one or more in almost every small village throughout the country, we shall find them to have been the offspring of the meanest of motives, as they have invariably become the prolific parents of the worst of vices, if not the vilest of crimes. Okay, now you have to understand right here is this right here is the entire argument. Well, this whole book is the argument of the anti-Masonic movement. Okay? It's a religious institution called Freemasonry. One of these institutions is going to become what me and you today call Mormonism. And one of these institutions are going to become today what me and you call Freemasonry. But in 1827, they were one entity. Well, before 1827, they were one entity. Now in 1827, they're two entities. Okay. So stay with me, like and subscribe, do the poll. Okay. Whenever and wherever a village starts up, morality and good order, as well as a religion and piety, very properly require the erection of a church. This is consonant to virtue, reason, and sound policy, as well as the duty we owe to our God. The spire of the village, listen, Mormons, what's all the Texas stuff about, right? What's the whole argument about the temple, the Fairview Temple? The spire to the heavens, it draws your eyes to the heavens, right? Okay, now listen to this in 1827. This will blow your mind. The spire of the village church is the first thing which strikes the eye of the pious traveler. And as it modestly rises, pointing to the Christian's heaven, right? He beholds in it an emblem of the hope within him and pleasing proof of the progress of piety and civilization. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? Anybody that paid any kind of attention to the Fairview, Texas temple stuff, that's the whole point of this. That is the entire Mormon argument, is to draw your eyes to the heavens. Well, here it is in an anti-Masonic book, word for word, that exact literature. Okay. Page 58. The next thing, if not in order of time, if not the next thing, if not in order of time the first, which though a convenience to the traveler, too often becomes a nuisance to the neighborhood, right? The church becomes a nuisance to the neighborhood, is the erection of a tavern. And what next? The village does not always grow rapidly. The traveling is not always good, and there are sometimes but few travelers when it is good. In proportion to, as the church flourishes, the tavern fades. Huh, isn't that weird? The landlord finds his custom not quite equal to his wants, much less his wishes. Something must be done. Some contrivance hit upon at our countrymen are not backward at uh, contrivance to increase his custom and his coffers, to diffuse in larger quantities the stimulus which fills his kegs and decanters. I love this guy. That's so funny. Some contrivance to hit upon, and our countrymen are not backwards at contrivance to increase his custom and his coffers, to diffuse in larger quantities the stimulus which fills his kegs and decanters, and to pocket in return the loose change of the wayfaring man, or the fool who heeds not the warning voice of the prophet. And prophet is spelled like the prophet Joseph Smith, right? Woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink. O wary Lord, therefore, if he be not a Freemason. Oh man, this guy just cracks me up. You guys should really get this book. It's, me reading it like this, I don't know if it does it justice at all, but this guy is hilarious, man. If not a Freemason, so he's calling Freemasons drunks, and then you go to their church. They've established churches, and you go to their church because now you're down and out, and there's no travelers, and you can't make any money, and so you basically go give all your money to the church instead of the tavern, which is owned by a Mason anyways. So you understand, it's all Masonic. The whole thing is Masonic. That's what he's telling you, is it doesn't matter which way you go, you're still giving this to the Freemasons. If he has ever known the mysterious sensations that seize the young and ardent candidate, in quote, when he learns to lisp those sublime Kabbalistic Jachin and Boaz, immediately determines to become a member of the lambskin fraternity. Okay, these names are very, very important, apostate congregation. If you watched my previous series about William Morgan, you would understand my entire channel. I really focus on the names, right? The names and the locations of these places, right? It's so important because those are your smoking gun. Those are your crumb trails. That's your evidence, right? So when you're doing your own research, when you follow these names of these people, and when you follow the locations, and it's very important, because in 1827 they're telling you this is raw, right? He's telling you in 1827. So now in 2026, when you're doing research, that's one of the problems I have with scholars today, is they don't go back to these books. They talk about what some dude said in 1950, or what some guy said in 1970, 2015. Okay, that's what their research is on today. Nobody goes back to the source. This is the source. Okay, so it's so important, because now when you're doing your own research today, you're gonna be like, well, wait a minute. The entire anti-Masonic literature is saying this, and now this guy in 2022 is saying something absolutely totally different. You see how we're blowing these scholars out of the water just by going to the source material. I don't give two shits what any scholar says, because as we have learned through this channel, researching Mormonism, literally everything that we have learned through scholarship is complete bullshit. Every Mormon historian, Mormon scholar, every one of them are feeding you something somebody else fucking said. This channel is contemporary to Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith is still alive. 1827. He's still alive. Okay. So this stuff is contemporary. And when they're telling you about, when we know in Mormonism about the first vision in 1826, then we get these, other stories, right? This is contemporary stuff, apostate congregation. Do you understand? So I don't care what any. So you go to my channel and you watch all of my videos on those authors. All of those authors are contemporary to Joseph Smith. When Henry Coswell legit meets Joseph Smith and is like, this dude is not legit, that entire book, 3 Days in Nauvoo, his entire book is on the legitimacy of if Joseph Smith is even really who he says he is. It's an entire book. He wrote an entire book on it. Is this guy even really who he says he is? And he's not. If you would read the book in context, you will very clearly see that. But nobody reads these books. All these scholars, that's why I say on this channel, Apostate Congregation, we are blowing these scholars out of the water simply just by reading the books. Now they have a thing called sermon magic. Are you fucking kidding me? Mormonism Live, Bill Reel, RFM, Rebecca Biblioteca. Eventually, you guys are going to have to say the words Solomonic magic. And the Mormon atheist is who discovered that, not fucking Dan Vogel. We've been over this for 2 years now. We've been over this. I gave Dan Vogel a chance for a year and a half to, and he shut me down every single time I contacted him, everything. Or he would be like, keep going, champ. Okay. Eventually I was just like, fuck it, man. This is Solomonic magic. You can't deny it. It's Solomonic magic. It's not folk magic. There's no such thing as folk magic. Well, there is, but as it pertains to Joseph Smith, no. So everybody else is kind of coming around to it, and Mormonism Live and those three continuously scoff at the Mormon atheist. And the reason why is because they legitimately do not read these books. Because if they did read these books, they would not scoff the Mormon atheist. So that is my evidence, and that is also my proof that you have not read these books, yet you scoff the Mormon atheist. So I would challenge you to just read one of them. Just read one of them I talk about. And tell me I'm wrong. You can't do it. I challenge you. Let's start with Dan Vogel, Mormonism Live. I directly challenge you guys. Let's start with Dan Vogel and why this is not Solomonic magic. And how Dan Vogel for 30 years has not been able to figure out that the Joseph Smith Jupiter talisman is the third pentacle of Jupiter. It took the Mormon atheist 2 weeks to find that. And Dan's been talking about it for 30 years and he still can't figure it out. And I figured it out in 2 weeks. How is that possible? So that's stuff like that is my point on this channel, right? Is these people are not telling you the full truth. They're giving you bullshit stories like sermon magic. Sermon magic. What the hell is sermon magic? I've never even heard of that before. What is sermon magic? I study magic. Because of my channel, I legitimately study this stuff. And up until I saw that episode 2 days ago or whatever, I've legit never heard of sermon magic before. So this is a new thing. But so my point with that is you see how easily Mormon history has changed, because I guarantee you every fucking dumbass podcaster out there is going to pick up on that and be like, whoa, it's sermon magic. Okay, you idiots, it's not sermon magic. And this is exactly how folk magic was formed. This same exact way, right? So it's a grift. It's a complete grift. You're being grifted. And then they say, donate to my channel after they grift you into buying their books, right? They're not reading the sources. They're reading what Dan Vogel wrote. They're reading what D. Michael Quinn wrote. They're not going to the anti-Mormon literature and reading the anti-Mormon literature, because Mormon history comes from anti-Mormon literature. And if you don't believe me, just read it. Just go read it. I challenge you. It's a direct challenge to anybody that ever watches this channel. If you do not believe me, pick a book contemporary to Joseph Smith and read that book. And not Mormonism Unveiled. Do not read Mormonism Unveiled. You have to pick something else. Pick something else, and you'll see. So let's keep going with this. So on page 58 now, we are, what's our time, congregation? All right, so let's keep going. Like and subscribe to the channel. Okay. Okay, the village does not always grow. All right, Freemason, if he has ever known the mysterious sensations that seize the young and ardent candidate. All right, we already read that. Full of the matter, he loses no time in repairing to the next village or city, or wherever there is a noodle wherever there is a noodle manufactory established, and gets himself initiated into the sublime mysteries of the ancient and honorable craft. Italicized. Okay. I love this guy, man. To do justice. Remember, the ancient and honorable craft is the craftsman. Okay. To do justice to his head, page 59. However, he does not mean to become a noodle himself, but to learn the art of making noodles of others. The bright eye, the dazzling sun. Okay, so in context, when he's referring to noodles, he's referring to the people, the dupes. They're noodle heads. They're dupes, right? They're stupid. So he calls them noodle heads, and he calls it the noodle manufactory. The noodle manufactory established, and gets himself initiated into the sublime mysteries of the ancient and honorable craft. To do justice to his head, however, he does not mean to become a noodle himself, but to learn the art of making noodles of others. The bright eye, the dazzling sun, the milder crescent and the 7 little twinkling stars are now seen to decorate his signboard, which almost feels amazing at finding, uh, which almost feels amazed at finding itself the bearer of so many gilded and mysterious images, and which are held out as so many monitors to the traveler or villagers, that within there dwells a man whose heart is so generous and tender that he will feast them on the smiles or benevolence, the smiles of benevolence, as well as the sweets of small beer, brandy, and beefsteaks. Brother Lambskin is now fully prepared to give the sign manual at the tip of the chin and the mysterious grip, and to seduce those who are so wise as to know how to answer his signals, to rise up to to rise up early in the morning to buy his strong drink. Okay, so do you see what he said there? He basically just described a Mormon. Okay, so uh, they're milder crescent, and so you can rewind that and you can listen to that, and he basically, they're killing you with kindness, right? And then they're gonna, initiate you. That's what they do. That's what a missionary does. They kill you with kindness, and next thing you know, you're being baptized and you become a noodlehead in the noodle factory. Okay, so but as I love that. The noodle factory. The Mormon church is the noodle factory, and Mormons are noodles. I love that. That's so funny to me, man. Ah. Not only are you a noodlehead, but you're an ass and a cattle as well. Oh shit. This guy kills me, man. All right. Solomon Southwick is by far, hands down, my favorite author. Okay. So, those of you just joining, the name of this book is A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry, addressed to the young men of the United States, 1827. We're reading out of this book and comparing what this book is saying in 1827 and comparing it to Mormonism. Okay, so I was a born and raised Mormon into the cult of Mormonism. I do not believe in Mormonism, and so we're just going through this book, and it's very stunning as a Mormon, born and raised Mormon, when I hear these anti-Masonic stories, how similar they are to the Mormon stories and Mormon history. They're identical in most. I don't even want to say a lot. I'll say most. In most cases, they're damn near word for word. Whatever is going on in the anti-Masonic movement has something to do with Mormon history. It's stunning. It's literally stunning. So I believe that the anti-Masonic movement is literally warning us against this religious institution called Freemasonry. Well, that is what they're doing. That's what the whole anti-Masonic movement is about. They're warning you against a religious institution that is called Freemasonry, and they call it the Church of Masonry. So the anti-Masonic movement fails. So the wheel keeps turning, the ball keeps rolling. And in 1830, it becomes Mormonism and Freemasonry as we know them today. And I get this through the books. This is not my opinion. There's no opinion here. This is literally what these books say. This is legit what these books say. It's stunning. So let's keep going. Okay, so let's see, where were we at? On page 59. Okay, but as there are not enough but as there may not be enough of such asses or cattle in the village or vicinity to make the speculation equal to his benevolent, italicized, design in joining the fraternity, he soon recollects that he has a garret entirely vacant. Okay, now what a garret is what they, in the 1800s, a garret is what you called the attic. Okay, so the attic is a garret. All right. Okay, he soon recollects that he has a garret entirely vacant, inhabited only now and then by a few erratic rats and mice, and perhaps a half-starved cat. Watching for her prey in the upper story of her master watches for his below. Hold on, let's see that. Watching for her prey in her upper story as her master watches for his below. Oh, I see. Okay. It's in quotation. So he's referring the cat. It's a cat and mouse story. I got it. Okay. The master mason is watching for his prey below, his initiate. I got it. Okay. Not one of which has ever turned his attention to the mysteries of masonry, but which are now in a fair way to meet on a level with the sons of light. Okay, do you understand me? The sons of light. That's a Brigham Young Sons of Light. Okay, for something ingenuous publican, for the ingenuous publican. Okay, they were not called Republicans, they were called publicans because they would go to the pubs and they would talk about their politics at the pubs. And so that is why they called them publicans, which we now call them today Republicans. But the original name for Republicans were publicans because they would go to the pubs and drink and talk about their social politics. So the publicans has hit upon the expedient of turning his empty garret into a lodge room. Remember, his empty garret is the attic. Okay, getting a charter from the Grand Lodge that focus of iniquity and corruption, and himself with 2 or 3 of his sly associates constituted master wardens. Listen to me now. Okay, this is important right here. Okay, this is on page 59. Okay, but which are now in a fair way to meet on a level with the sons of light. Okay, the sons of light are Brigham Young. Okay, for the ingenious publican has hit upon the expedient of turning his empty garret into a lodge room, getting a chapter from the Grand Lodge, that focus of inequity and corruption, and himself, with 2 or 3 of his sly associates, constituted master wardens and treasurer. and the something, and it's all fucking blotted out. Wouldn't you know that? It's all blotted out. These are reprints. Apostate Congregation. This book is out of print, so we have to deal with the ink blots. I have no idea what that says, but basically, that's Joseph Smith right there. Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery. Remember, in all of the anti-Masonic literature or anti-Mormon literature that we read, there were 6 original Mormons. There were 6 original Mormons. Okay. All right, page 60. Important object. Okay, so let's see if we can kind of context clue this, right? So Sly Associates constituted Master Warden and Treasurer and the something important object. And the I have no idea. Something important object, but rather one of the chief keys of the concern, page 60. He now begins to realize the fruition of his golden dreams in joining the order. He goes to work in good earnest at making Freemasons. Okay, that's the missionaries, right? That's the entered apprentice. What is the entered apprentice? The entered apprentice is the missionary. The craft, right? The craftsmen are the magi, right? And then the master maidens or master masons are kind of like the bishops. Okay. So, as well as retailing juleps, italicized in bold letters, and every blind candidate, it's quotations, that he leads to the altar, adds one to his julep customers. Oh man. Thus the young and heedless villager is first lured to the door, whose steps lead down to the gates of hell, exclamation mark. Industrious mechanics are seduced from their workshops. The farmer in the vicinity is taught to think more of prying into the secrets of the lodge than of plowing his land. Wives are deserted by their husbands at time when their society is most expected at the domestic fireside, and children are left to go ragged and without sustenance or education. That our grand village necromancer, okay, that our grand village necromancer, our wholesale and retail dealer in mystery moonshine and mixed liquors, may reveal and wax fat. Okay, we're talking magic right here. Okay, wax fat is what you make your sigils out of, right? And flourish upon this folly and wickedness of his own creation. And thus, when compared with the truly useful and indispensable village church, the old saw is completely raised. Whatever, let's see, that's really small. Wherever God erects a house of prayer, the devil comes and builds a temple there. Boom. Mormons. Damn, dude, that hits. Oh, that hits. Wherever God erects a house of prayer, the devil comes and builds a temple there. Wow. That shit fucking hits, man. Our hero is now in full tide Okay, do you guys understand that we were just talking about magic right there? Okay, the village necromancer, our wholesale and retail dealer in mystery moonshine and mixed liquors, may revel and wax fat and flourish upon all his folly and wickedness of his own creation. Okay, do you understand that? And thus, when compared with the truly useful and indispensable village church, the old saw is completely realized. Wherever God erects a house of prayer, the devil comes and builds a temple there. Do you guys understand that Mormonism is Freemasonry and Freemasonry is Mormonism? Do you understand that? I mean, between William Morgan, so we did William Morgan's book, that series, and you can go to the playlist and watch these, right? There was 23 episodes in William Morgan's book. Okay. By about the third episode of that, if you're not convinced, then by the 23rd episode, you will be. Now we're in the 8th episode of this book. And like I'm telling you about Mormonism, right? All right, so here we go. Our hero is now in the full tide of successful experiment. And the sun, moon, and twinkling stars on his something board are but faint emblems of his expiring hopes. Do you understand that? Okay, that's the magic he's talking about. And the sun, the moon, and the twinkling stars of his something board are but faint emblems of his aspiring hopes. With a troop of noodles at his heels, he emerges from the bar room to the bench as a justice of the peace. Okay, do you understand how he's telling you how fixed our fucking system is? In 1827, that's what William Morgan represents. William Morgan is a representation of the common man. Okay, the common man's civil liberties died on September 11th, 1826. That's a significant date, congregation. So you can picture these people almost walking around like Jesus and their fucking, 12 disciples behind him, right? You know, and then once he's done at the bar talking about, how he's going to undermine the United States Constitution, he goes to be a justice of the peace, is what Solomon Southwick is saying to you, and how messed up that is. Okay. Okay. Or county judge, or leaps over the head of many a better man into the halls of legislation as a languoring to the people, as a something lawgiver, as a lawgiver to the people. Well, may he put on a solemn face as Cromwell did when stooping to find his corkscrew. Okay, now you got to understand the story of Cromwell. Okay, he made his fanatical intruders believe he was kneeling to pray. Well, I say, okay, wow, that's interesting right there. Solemn face as Cromwell did when stooping to find his corkscrew, he made a fanatical intruder's belief he was kneeling to pray. Dude, that's the story of that's the story of, that's the story of, oh, it's coming to me. Hang on. I did a video interview with Martin Harris, Joel Tiffany's interview with Martin Harris. Okay, so in that interview, he's telling, is that the interview? I don't remember. I don't remember. Damn it. I don't remember if that's the one. Anyways, there's a story where Joseph Smith, or no, Martin Harris is picking his teeth with a pin and he drops the pin and he wants Joseph to help him find the pin with his hat and seer stone. And Joseph he like kneels down and picks up the pin. But in the original story, oh fuck, I wish I could remember what that's called, man. But anyways, that is the same goddamn story. On page 61, as Cromwell did when stooping to find his corkscrew, he made his fanatical intruder believe he was kneeling to pray. Dude, that is literally the Martin Harris story. Well, I say, may our hero, when surrounded by his dupes in the garret, sing with all needful gravity and grimace. Here's the song they sung. Hail Masonry divine, glory of ages shine. Long mayest thou reign. Long mayest thou reign. Where thy lodges stand, may they have great command and always grace the land. Thou art divine. That was the song they sang. I could just imagine I'm all drunk and like, Hail Masonry divine. Yeah, dude, I can tell. Oh, these guys are like some pompous fucking douchebags, don't you think? All right, this is a brief but pretty fair history of the rise and progress of perhaps 9/10 of our country temples of fatuity, Fatuity, our temples of fatuity. Motives of a similar nature, bearing in many cases. Okay, so that right there tells me this is a brief but pretty fair history of the rise and progress of perhaps 9/10 of our country temples of fatuity. Now, he is very clearly distinguishing temples from churches. Because he says, wherever God erects a house of prayer, the devil comes and builds a temple there. So he's clearly, you know, making the difference, right? Motives of a similar nature, bearing in many cases upon different objects, both political and mercenary, have no doubt given rise to all the city lodges, from the grand focus to the most insignificant retreat of midnight mystery and moral turpitude. For example, let us take a glance at the Albany Lodge some 30 years ago. Okay, so now this is in 1827. So now we're going to talk about the Albany Lodge some 30 years ago. Do you understand me? So we're what is that? 17, 1790, 1798, right? The Grand Albany Lodge in 1798, some 30 years ago. In the olden time of purity and simplicity, when the population of Albany was composed wholly of a strictly industrious, moral, and religious people. Okay, listen to this. Listen to these words, congregation. The words matter. Do you understand me? Because when we talk Mormon history, we talk about how everybody's stupid and they're all fucking dumb. And Joseph Smith is Smith is a common name. And, everybody was doing this. Okay, well, here we are, 1827, and they're describing the land. And now in 1827, he's telling you what it was like 30 years ago. Okay, so these are windows in time that just totally destroy any fucking Mormon story that we've ever heard. They're just destroyed. And this is scholarship. Donate to my fucking channel as I lie to you and tell you absolute fucking nonsense bullshit. And I have this scholar grifting a goddamn book for you to buy. Okay? The very people that are supposed to be telling you the truth are the ones lying to you. Do you understand me? Okay? In the olden time of purity and okay, Albany was surprised of a strictly okay, Albany was composed wholly of a strictly industrious, moral, and religious people, so silly and so wicked a thing as Freemasonry, I presume, was not thought of among them. Our ancient brothers had too much good sense to be attracted by such a contemptible illusion, and too much of good old Netherland honesty and piety to think of speculating in so vile a commodity. There was indeed between the stern virtue of the pilgrims who first landed on Plymouth Rock and the spirit of the early settlers of Albany. Okay, do you understand what's happening here? I presume was not thought of among them. Freemasonry, I presume, was not thought of. Our ancient brothers had too much good sense to be attracted. William Morgan's book is legitimately telling you Freemasonry does not exist. There is no such thing as Freemasonry. In 1826, when his book is being written, they are legitimately creating Freemasonry. Okay? It does not exist. Today, it very much does exist. I mean, you can't deny that. But they're creating it. It's a religious institution called Freemasonry. Okay? And now Solomon Southwick is kind of doubling down on that, saying the people of Albany 30 years ago, there's no way they came, this is, there was indeed two. Okay, so Albany, let's see. And the spirit of the early settlers of Albany, so strong, page 62. What's our time, congregation? Let's stop there for this episode on page 62. And next, we are going to start getting into some of the descriptions. We're going to get into the Pritchards, my brother Yankee, the Dutchman. Okay, these names are very, very important because in Mormonism, we have Daniel Wells was a Dutch lawyer, right? Brigham Young is a painter. Joseph Smith or Oliver Cowdery is a bookbinder. Joseph Smith is the lambskin maker. He's also the hatter, right? Okay, so these names matter. And if you think that I'm off my rocker, just wait until we get into it. And I want you to start thinking about the characteristics that we know of Joseph Smith, all the things that we know of the founders, right? Oliver Cowdery, Martin Harris, David Whitmer, Newell K. Knightley, Orson Pratt, Parley Pratt, because we're going to get into their names. And you're going to be shocked. So we're going to get into some of this stuff. And then especially when we get into the next book, David Bernard's book, we are going to legit name names. Parley P. Pratt, Orson Hyde, in an 1829 book. Why are these names in an 1829 book that have to do with Freemasonry that have legit nothing to do with Mormonism whatsoever? It's stunning. It is stunning. Okay, apostate congregation, like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. This channel is not monetized. It will never be monetized. So the only way you can help this channel is by liking, subscribing, sharing, all these kind of things. Oh, let's see what the poll said. Let's hit the poll. How do I end it? I don't know if I can end it. Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't the right one. Let's see. I don't know how to end it. So, anyways, like and subscribe. Hit the button. I'll put it on the next one because it'll stop after this. So, like and subscribe. This channel is not monetized. It will never be monetized. So the only way you can help is to like, subscribe, share. Not being monetized severely hampers the algorithms. So yeah, that's the only way that you can help get this message out. And I really encourage you to pick up this book. It's called A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry, addressed to the young men of the United States, 1827, published by Solomon Southwick. Okay, apostate congregation, in the words of the late great Solomon Southwick, the ashes of Morgan will rise again, congregation. And here we are. We are trying to spread this word, a solemn warning against Freemasonry, which is Mormonism, which if you look at the Epstein files and the bloodline list, the Mormon leaders are on the bloodline list. You can look it up for yourself, evaluate it. Now, it doesn't give any names. It just says the Mormon leaders. But do we really care whose names? It says the Mormon leaders. That means the Mormon church is part of the fucking Illuminati, because that is legit the Illuminati list. That is the list of the fucking Illuminati, right? The Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, all of these. And then at the bottom, it says the Mormon leaders. You can't argue that. You can't deny that. So this book makes a whole lot of fucking sense now, doesn't it? This book makes a lot of fucking sense now. Okay? Okay, congregation, we will see you on the other side.